we have no money left. Our visa is running out in 2 days and we have no phone connection. And we figure, well, we have to try. There's no other option. So we go to the border, but it's just military personnel. And they say, sorry, the border's closed. I'm like, what do you mean? We have everything with the Ministry of Tourism. Everything's figured out. They're like, yeah, sorry, but a war has started 2 hours ago and we've been forced to close all borders. So Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have still 30%, I think, of their border under dispute. And every, few years they have some small battles between each other. So they had gotten an order to close off the border so we couldn't cross. But we told them we have no money, we got no food, we can't cycle back to Dushanbe. It took us 30 days to get here.
Welcome to the Seek Travel Ride podcast, where we share the stories and experiences of people who have undertaken amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello, I'm your host Bella Malloy and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today's episode of Seek Travel Ride, Vallu Heinilä. In June 2022, Vallu embarked on an adventure which saw him cycle with his best friend Alvis 15,000 kilometres through 21 countries from Finland to Singapore. Despite facing adversity and some sickness along the way, Vallu encountered countless acts of kindness from strangers, shattering any previous misconceptions about travelling through so-called dangerous countries. He had some challenging moments, the high mountains of Tajikistan, having to navigate problems posed by closed border crossings, being in the rush of crowded cities in India, to the physicality of traversing the Annapurna Trail. This journey was certainly one of countless experiences. Since ending the journey in Singapore, Vallu has continued to push his limits in outdoor pursuits. He's paddle-boarded 320 kilometres across the Baltic Sea between Sweden and Finland, and also spent 74 days cycling and hiking his way across New Zealand's North and South Islands. It would certainly seem that Vallu gets the best from himself when he is fully immersed in physical pursuits in nature. Yet he has also gone through the transformative process of spending 10 days in complete silence. All these experiences added up have no doubt offered up invaluable life lessons in resilience and living in the present moment. I am super keen to explore this theme more with Vallu today and learn more about his amazing journeys. Vallu, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bella.
Oh, I'm stoked to be speaking with you, Vallu. I think it's going to be a real fun conversation that we have ourselves today. But a question which I start my show with, and I ask this of all my guests, is, Vallu, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have very faint memory. It definitely had those, 3 wheels in the back. I was that small. I think I rode that thing for, a couple years. We lived in the UK when I was like 0 to 5 years old. There, I think it was in our garage, this little bike that I got to play with. So.
Because I was here thinking, I'm speaking to a guy, he's from Finland. I wonder whether his first bike memories are going to be, is it going to be some hardcore Finnish story of, I cycled on the icy roads or something. But you were in the UK. Whereabouts were you there?
We lived in Cobham in Surrey, so near London, for my dad's work for a few years. So it was really lucky to grow up abroad. And after that, we moved to California for another 4 or 5 years before then coming to Finland and getting the Finnish childhood.
And you're in New Zealand now. Can I ask the question, what aspects of Finnish life do you miss being literally sort of diagonally on the other side of the world?
The sauna, for sure. Now it's getting pretty chilly in New Zealand. The winter's coming. We have snow on the peaks here around Wanaka. There's not a lot of easy access to saunas. And I got quite into the habit of hitting a sauna almost every night now before I came to New Zealand. So I really miss the sauna. Then obviously friends and family and other basic aspects like rye bread. The bread isn't super great in New Zealand, but hunger is a good spicing to have, and I'm usually pretty hungry here on the adventure, so I don't really mind what I eat.
You'll eat anything when you're really, really hungry.
Yeah.
Can I ask then, Vallu, like I mentioned in the intro there, it seems to me like you're energized by being outside, being out there with nature. Moving around and living in different parts of the world, was that a theme with you from growing up as well? Were you always an outdoors sort of kid in your childhood, or has that been something you've sort of grasped onto more so as an adult?
I think more of the latter, more as an adult. As a kid, obviously, we did go on family holidays and we went skiing and stuff. But how I perceive nature now is very different from like how I perceived it as a kid. Grassy field somewhere would have been nature for me. But right now, nature is mostly, I think about nature as untouched, while as well humans are. We have to remember we are also nature. Boeing 747 is nature because we have created it and we don't want to distance ourselves too much from nature. But when I say nature, I mean like being in the mountains or wilderness, kind of isolated from society and from constant cell connection and internet. And that when I was a kid, I didn't have pretty much at all. So it wasn't like a super outdoorsy person, always exploring the creeks and forests and really stoked. And then as I got older, I made more use of it. I think it's more as an adult, I realized, wow, there's a lot of cool places to explore. Getting away from the noise into true nature is really fruitful for me and helps me understand myself better.
Did you have like a light bulb sort of aha moment where that sort of happened for you? Was there like a certain pivotal trip where you were like, oh, I'm energized because I've been away from the white noise, the constant being in contact with people? Was there that stark realization, or is this just sort of slowly seeped into your psyche?
I think more of a gradual thing starts with like going with Alvis actually to Norway, doing like hikes, overnight hikes, sleeping on a mountain peak, just realizing like, wow, seeing the sunrise and sunset is really epic. It's really natural also. But in a city, often during sunrise, I'd be asleep, and during sunset, I'd be somewhere inside doing something. So just kind of like getting in, I don't know, maybe in touch with the circadian rhythm or something, and through that realizing like wow, this is pretty sweet, and then doing more and more of that, and always somehow getting the pulse higher as well. So it hasn't just been to go sit in nature, but do something there, go hiking or go cycling or go paddleboarding or surfing or something with activity in nature. So it came on gradually. It's a long answer to a short question, but it came on gradually instead of this light bulb moment.
Something, in a way, figuratively speaking, came on gradually, as in it did take a while to get there. Your journey from Helsinki to Singapore was obviously a long, gradual experience of being out there, totally vulnerable in nature at times as well. How did the idea of taking such a long distance journey come to being? Like, were you someone that was taking any form of bike travel prior to this trip?
No, so I didn't actually even own a bike prior to this trip. And Alvis, funnily, in the sauna said, hey, he's considering on cycling from Cairo to Cape Town. But he was also in the military then when he said this idea. And he talked about with these military lieutenants and personnel who had been peacekeepers in different African nations. And they said, you got to be careful. It can be dangerous in some parts. And hearing this, I told him, yo, let's go to Asia. I'll join you. He was like, okay, sure, let's go. And then we looked at a map, and Singapore seemed like a nice peninsula or island at the end of a peninsula. And that's how it came to be. But I, yeah, hadn't done anything of the sort or even cycled a lot when we committed to this idea.
Oh, wow. Having a bike for a long distance bike tour is sort of a prerequisite there. But from having that conversation in the sauna with, one of your best friends to then actually pedaling your way out of Helsinki, did you do some smaller trips beforehand, or was it purely a baptism of fire?
It was, yeah, that's well put. Baptism of fire, pretty much. I did do like a short 4 night, 5 night trip in Sweden, just seeing do I actually like to cycle? How does this work out? And kind of maybe understanding what kind of bike I want to get for the trip itself. But that's pretty much all the training and planning I did for the trip was that few overnight trips in Sweden.
You mentioned you sort of looked at a map. Helsinki, Singapore looks like a good ending spot, but did you both then plot like a vague route, or did you sort of, I don't want to say feel your way, you have to have a general idea, especially when there's border crossings in place, but
Yeah.
there are so many different ways you could make your way to Singapore. Like, how did you even decide in general how you would get there? Which countries you would even pass through?
Yeah, we kind of figured just Eastern Europe, didn't maybe name the countries, and then figured, we'd heard about the Pamir Highway. We're like, oh, Central Asia would be cool to get in there. Oh, and from Central Asia, we can just go through China and then drop down into Vietnam. And then it's just, we're already almost there. Like, And that was a kind of initial plan, but we were flexible with it. And then the war in Ukraine broke loose, and we had to obviously go around Ukraine instead of through it. Yeah, and lots of border issues on the way, but then we just adapted and made the trip look like us, even though we had to take a flight or two during the trip.
That has been something that has come up more and more with previous guests of mine as well, with closed border crossings. And I think Azerbaijan is still closed off. I think Turkmenistan going through Central Asia is still an area that I don't think you can travel across. Getting into China is problematic, which I believe you both faced. That was your initial plan, was to go through China, if I'm correct there?
Yeah, I actually lived in China for half a year during my studies, and I was really stoked about getting to cycle through there with Alvis and getting kind of like that secondhand experience of seeing him get really excited about this country so rich in history and culture and with incredible landscapes. But then, yeah, we couldn't cross overland borders, and we were not gonna fly to Finland to get a visa and fly back and go through the hassle. So, but we have shaken on it that someday we'll cycle through China for a few months with Alvis. So that journey is in the planning.
Oh gosh, I'm putting my request in here for podcast follow up with both you and Alvis, because I mentioned Alvis there as well. You have both got a beautiful film, which listeners is available on YouTube. If you search for Curious Pedals, you will see this, and perhaps you already have if the algorithm has been as kind to you as it was to me, because I feel watching the visuals of something, it really brings starkly to me that journey of how far you travel when the landscape changes so much. And I don't know whether you reflect back on that yourself as well, Vallu. Like, there's times where you're in farmed rolling countryside through Europe, then all of a sudden you're in dusty, high altitude mountain rocky scree in Tajikistan, and then you're sweating buckets in Southeast Asia. Like, it's such, the world changes so much in those 15,000 kilometers, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you changed so much in those 15,000 kilometers. That as well, kind of looking back, you feel like a different person than who left on that journey. So that also makes it seem much longer than it actually is and makes the 8 months that we were on the road seem like multiple years because the change that happens within ourselves is equivalent to what happened, for example, during the whole length of our studies or our adult life.
Was that realization something that you were aware of during the trip itself? Were you reflecting back and actually starting to see changes in your perceptions and in your personality might be the wrong word, but in the way that you were? Like, did you notice those changes yourself during this journey, or is it through reflecting back now that you see that so starkly?
Probably already during the journey, I noticed my emotions being magnified more, living kind of in a deeper key, being more vulnerable, and having so much space to being mindful and stuck in my head or stuck in the landscape around me, or kind of, yeah, analyzing the situations and myself, and then realizing, like, oh, all this thoughts and analysis doesn't matter, experience matters. And having that kind of realizations, I couldn't have got by staying home. So I think obviously it happened so gradually, the change, that you can't really notice it or put your finger on, like, oh, this morning I'm a different person than 2 weeks ago. But you can kind of sense like something's going on here, and it's pretty sweet what's happening because I'm getting more comfortable with how things are and how the world is. And a lot of prejudices are flying out, and a lot of the programming I've put into my mind during my years is getting kind of a little update, a little thump to the system, so to say.
It can't be anything but we do travel with a certain amount of preconception sometimes, especially, we go through areas where we have heard something or maybe even just our thoughts. And I've often wondered, for those of my guests who've taken such vast, long distance travel, what it's been like when you're faced with those preconceptions and meeting them up with reality as well in the moment. I realise this might be a silly question, but I was wondering, is there somewhere where that was really evident to you at the time? Like, I could understand as you near the end of your journey, perhaps through your experiences on the trip itself, your preconceptions have just dissolved away. But perhaps more at the beginning of the trip, were there times where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't expect this at all?
Yeah, probably like India was one where we had a lot of prejudice from stuff that we've thought about ourselves, but also what people told us, like, oh, you're going to have a lot of stomach bugs. People are going to try to hassle you. Make sure to have a good lock on your bike. oh, it's so dirty everywhere and it's so messy and cars won't watch out for you. Like always wear a helmet. And then we go to India and it's everything except the above. We have zero stomach problems. Nobody tried to haggle us. Beautiful roads, very pristine nature up near the Himalayas where we cycled. Obviously, when we talk about India, you can't say India is this or that because it's such a massive country, biggest country in the world now by population. But the little scratch that we saw of India was everything except what we expected. So we had a very pleasant experience, and maybe sometime we paid $1 instead of 50 cents for a meal, but it's not like they're driving Ferraris, so we felt very safe and welcome. And obviously, people are curious about these two cyclists from a foreign land, especially in places where they probably never see foreigners. But everybody was respectful, and they have their own upbringing that maybe has them staring at us for a very long period of time next to a tent in the morning, but which might be intimidating for us. But like, what's up? How are we doing this morning? And it was always fine.
When you talk about the perceptions that other people put onto you about another country as well, oh, India's going to be hectic, it's going to be not safe, it's scary, lock your bikes and stuff. I think something that I came up on one of your, it's probably an Instagram post, I think, Vallu, was your anecdote of reflecting back. The countries you locked your bike up in the least were apparently the most dangerous ones that other people were warning you about as well. Like from a security perspective, the way that we perceive places in the Western media is so far from the truth sometimes as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I was planning, oh, Tajikistan, you Google that, and it's on like the red list of countries you shouldn't visit in the Finnish Foreign Ministry. And I'm like, oh no, I got to get some duct tape because I got a nice red bike. I got to make it look bad so nobody wants to steal it. And then we get there, and I'm like, oh, I'm such a fool for thinking that like this is the safest country of our whole trip. It seemed the further we went from home and the more exotic the country was, the safer we felt. But it's good to remember this is two dudes pretty well built, so we can't speak for other travelers, but we felt surprisingly safe and the further we were from home. So I think that stands pretty well, yeah, for the whole trip because most adversity came from animals, and those animals were in Eastern Europe, dogs running after us and us, having dreams and nightmares of dogs attacking us. And we were all the time on the watch because these shepherd dogs were chasing us down roads and barking pretty loudly and don't look super friendly and trying to get a bite at our calves. And then as we went further on, there was less maybe wildlife that was dangerous, and people seemed to be more welcoming, kinder, more curious.
The shepherd dogs are something that always comes to my mind, and especially when I think of Eastern Europe. I say that, I mean, living in France, I've had my experience being chased by a Pyrenean dog, which isn't fun either. And I mean, when I think of it, I mean, they are shepherd dogs too, aren't they? And they're there to do a job. They're there to protect their flock. But it's a question I've often had, and it's weird because there doesn't seem to be one solution provided by a guest that's a uniform solution as to what to do. And I have some guests tell me, get off the bike, don't look at them in the eye, be very subservient. And I've had others say, you've got to ride as fast as you can. I've got others say, you've got to throw some sticks and stones, and sometimes not to hit them, but to just keep them away and show them who's boss. I want to know, did you have like one tactic between you and Alvis in terms of what you were going to do to fend yourselves from the shepherd dogs? I want to know, what's your routine there?
No, other than yeah, we tried everything. Nothing seemed to work. We tried the, oh, just speak nicely, calmly to them, get off your bike, but they seemed to get more angry. And we did this like turtle shell that we put like our bikes around us, and we were in the middle of the bikes with our panniers and front wheels kind of blocking us. And I have a big frame bag, so they can't get through the frame either. But then we'd have to wait for like 10 minutes for the dogs to calm down and let us go. And it was often like big flocks of dogs. And in the end, we, after so many encounters and nothing happened to us, we maybe gained a little bit of confidence that they're not going to actually bite or attack us. And then we kind of just pedaled through and just kept our pace, tried not to hit them. But yeah, no tactics seemed to work. We got even pepper spray because they told us in Romania, oh, here's pepper spray for dogs. We got a few hits and first feel bad like shooting pepper spray at a dog, but then they just got more angry. We're sneezing a bit, but still chasing us, wanting us for lunch. So it didn't really work either.
Maybe they're like people, we're not all the same, are we? We have different personalities too. So,
Yeah, I'd love to tap into a dog's mind of what they perceive cyclists to be, because pedestrians, they don't mind. They let them go, but a bicycle, they can hear the bike coming from like a mile away and you hear them barking. Like how can they know we're coming? Like, have I forgot to crease my, center hub? Is it squeaking and hurting their ears? Do they think we're sheep? What's going on here? Because we were so curious on why dogs get so angry about bicycles.
actually, while we're on the theme of wildlife, watching your film there, I'm trying to remember what country you were in, but I think you were in like a road tunnel and then all of a sudden there was like a bear. Was it Romania, if I'm thinking correctly? And there was like a.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people about bears before, and sometimes I think I overhype it, but I mean, there is obviously some sort of inherent danger. But were you worried in that moment? Were you was it a surreal type of moment? What was that like? Because you're not alone. Let me just set it up for you, listeners. It's not like you're in the middle of the wilderness and Vallu and Alvis are the only people on bikes. There were cars around you coming in both directions as well.
Yeah, so that was actually like the second bear we saw, and we happened to have the cameras out. The first bear encounter, we were driving down the Transfargessen like road and mountains, and it's a beautiful road. I think Top Gear or some show was there. We're driving down, and then cars start honking at us, and we're like, "Oh, hi," because they always honk at us, and we wave to them, but now nobody's waving. And then one car pulls down their window and like screams like, "Don't go! There's bears ahead!" And there was a mama bear and three cubs like on the curb of the road because people are, I guess, throwing them sandwiches or feeding them, and they come then to the side of the road. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? And then this car says, wait, I'll turn around and I'll be between you and the bears. And for all of us, this is like, oh, perfect, problem solved. And I'm like, hold up, it's still bears we're talking about. And it's like a station wagon car, so it's not super high. Then it goes slowly. We're going towards the bears. Then the mama bear gets on her forelegs and then on her hind legs and is just towering above the car right when we're next to it. And then we don't look back and just power down. And that was pretty exhilarating, realizing the size of this animal when it stands up and realizing the car can't really protect us, could easily come over the car. And then later on, we were in the tunnel and there was a bear at the entrance of the tunnel. We were going downhill, so if it came into the tunnel, we'd kind of be trapped because we can't cycle super fast uphill back in the tunnel. And that was exciting as well. And you put your spidey instincts on and go with the gut feeling and what feels the safest. That was fine. It was a small bear.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think of what it would have been like. A mama bear with cubs as well, because she'd be protective up on her hind legs. I'd feel pretty vulnerable then. I've always thought nature has a way of making you feel really teeny tiny small, and that would be a case in point. But I don't want to focus on wildlife encounters being chased by dogs and bears, because by gosh, you must have had some amazing wildlife encounters which were just so, wow, look what I'm witnessing here as well. I imagine that would have been the case. Just seeing wildlife in its natural habitat around you, not feeling vulnerable or insecure or unsafe in those moments too.
Yeah, we had some, not like crazy amount of wildlife on our route though. I can't like recall any extremely blissful wildlife moments on this route because it is a lot of barren land where not a lot of animals live, but obviously seeing like a flock of birds just crossing through the sunrise or sunset, seeing huge vultures in Nepal and the Himalayas, those are pretty special moments. And but other than that, there's no crazy wildlife experiences that come to mind other than the dogs.
I don't want to focus this on the dogs. Let's move on
Yeah.
from that. Something I was wondering, and actually, I think this is pretty unique in that I've certainly interviewed guests who have done a very similar journey to yourself there, Vallu. And I've interviewed people who have done a tour as a team of two, but they've always been a couple or a father and a daughter or something. Whereas you're touring there with your best mate. What was it like to ride and be in each other's company for so long? And did that solidify your friendship, or did it strain it, or did it depend on the moments of the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. Often people expect that we're now like way better friends than when we left because we've spent so much time together and experienced so much. But now obviously we live in different countries. I say we're way deeper friends because only Alvis can understand what I've been through and only I can understand what he's been through. Kind of like if you're war pals, even though if you think differently, you become very deep friends because you've experienced something together and there's nothing that like brings people together, like experiencing stuff together. Yeah, I think Alvis was my kind of, how would I put it, my catalyst for personal growth, because I started reflecting on him, my suffering. I would start resenting him for not being the person of my imagination, the person I've created in my imagination, even though he's staying himself. And then realizing, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. It's actually in me. And then being able to realize that and work on myself. And so he was, in a way, a mirror for me of seeing how I'm doing myself and fueling my diary on days when I was angry or disappointed with him, and then kind of realizing he hasn't changed. I can't change him. Why be angry? I can only change myself. Start accepting. And that was yeah, being alone. I don't think I would have had that similar growth. Like now, doing these few adventures alone, I haven't had that catalyst for kind of learning through someone else. And I think that's brilliant. I actually have a quote here about like staying with people that kind of push you to fall. It says, join with those who experiment, take risks, fall, get hurt, and then take some more risks. Stay away from those who do not think like them. People who have never once taken a step unless they were sure they would be respected for doing so, and who prefer certainties to doubts. So I think this shows like Alvis is definitely a risk taker who loves to take risks and go towards uncertainty. And being with him on the journey helped me embrace uncertainty and take risks much more as well. Yeah, it's very a multitude of aspects. What's it like to travel with your best buddy? But yeah, you can't put it to words. There's so much you can learn more in a way when you travel with a friend, but then solitude is nice as well, being alone. And we had that moment in Nepal when he went to do a 10-day silent meditation and I went on my own journey. And then we realized, like, wow, it's really cool to have a cycling buddy, and you regain that appreciation and gratitude. And after that period of being away for 10 days, it was like starting the trip all over again.
Yeah, and I can imagine both of the experiences gained in doing vastly different activities at the time. Like you said, Alvis was doing that 10-day silent meditation, which I believe you've done yourself since, haven't you?
Yeah, I did that here in New Zealand.
I want to get into that in a little bit, but while Alvis was doing that, you were biking and hiker biking at times, the Annapurna Trail, which, wow, I mean, I'm a mountain lover, Value. So, I've looked at the Himalayas of Nepal and pictured myself hiking on that trail. And it was only about a year or so ago that I realized people actually ride there. But I've actually wondered, gosh, that's a different type of riding, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of push bike for sure, especially with a gravel bike where you don't have that huge smallest gear, so, or biggest gear, whichever it is, the big disc in the back like mountain bikes have. So you have to, yeah, 50-50 hiking and cycling then. But it's really nice because hiking, when you get to the top of a mountain, you're like, oh, I have to go down, and you bust your knees. But when you have your bike up there, it's pretty nice then to just like fly down.
You are right. I think the biggest toll on our body is when we're walking or, doing something downhill, because that's where your muscles are and your joints are under most strain. If I'm to use the word strain, though, like you were on your physical limits at times on the Annapurna Trail because you actually got really sick while you were doing that, didn't you?
Yeah, I got some infection in my throat on the trail, and then yeah, I got quite sick and had to rest for a few days. But it went over, and it kind of, yeah, maybe was a good reminder to kind of like chill, relax, and not push, because I was really trying to do huge days and put my body to the ultimate test. And then this sickness took over me. I was like, hey, maybe let's take it easy a few days. And maybe my muscles were grateful for that sickness of letting them recover and lay in a nice little tea hut in the mountains.
I guess there's also a difference between acknowledging when you need to pause because you're physically ill to also pushing yourself to your physical limits, illness versus exhaustion sometimes, because I don't know if enjoy is the right word to use here, Valu, but you do like to put yourself under some physical strain in the activities that you're pursuing outdoors as well, because I feel like you experience more deeply when you are at your limit. Would I be right to assume that?
100%, yeah. I really, yeah, enjoyment is a tough word because you kind of often connect that to like a big smile on your face and like pleasure. But I find like putting the body to the ultimate test is like really fruitful. You get a whole new set of chemicals in your mind. You get kind of like an altered state of consciousness. You get really deep gratitude for certain things, and you can become incredibly proud of yourself, proud of your body, realize the capabilities you have that you didn't know of. Yeah, there's multiple aspects why I kind of, yeah, find fruitful to push myself and do stuff that has a risk of failure in a way. And then the achievement of getting through that feels even greater. Just like with the whole trip to Singapore, or then even a single day when we decide we're gonna climb 2,000 meters today. Like, cool, that's a big climb here at 4,000 meter altitude. But once you get it, and the more difficult it is, the bigger the rewards are. So I think that's why I like the challenge.
Yeah, and I guess there is definitely a big element of personal growth that comes from finding your boundaries and or meeting those challenges and seeing what you are capable of. We were saying enjoyment's not the right word, but I think there is also reflecting back and that self-assuredness that comes with taking things on like that as well, learning more about yourself. There would have to be a sense of pride at what you achieve doing those things too, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you kind of start to realize what matters, and life is simplified when you're like in true adversity, and you won't complain anymore when you go to the restaurant and table next to you gets the meal first, even though you ordered first. You're just grateful to be alive.
I'm thinking of moments that you had of adversity during your trip, which, I watched in your film. And just the triviality of being in a restaurant waiting for your dinner is so far off the spectrum and such a first world problem, as we like to call it. When I think of moments of adversity, I think I pronounce it in Tajikistan, the Wakon Valley. Is this before connecting to the Pamir Highway? Or is it part of the Pamir Highway? I've not been there, and it's all mountainous and looks incredible. But you had some tough times of adversity there, right?
Yeah, it's like a little detour, or not so little. We thought it's a little detour off the Pummer Highway, and then we spent probably a week or two there. We planned to do like 60, 70K a day, but ended up doing like 30 or 40 because the climbing was really intense. I had a stomach bug. We had all kinds of obstacles shoot our way. And yeah, it was maybe the closest thing to being like, what's the show? Amazing Race, having to like figure stuff out. Where do we find food, gas, spare parts? Where can we sleep? Is it safe here? And we have to negotiate with people, negotiate with the locals, understand what we have ahead of us because the map definitely isn't the territory when it comes to Tajikistan. Yeah, you get to really be maybe in the most unexplored, off the grid place we could go with our bikes on this journey. And yeah, we had some true suffering and true adventure, definitely in what we call Whack Valley now.
Whack Valley. I guess it's really pushing yourself to the limits of vulnerability. But, you talk about Amazing Race. I guess that's a really way of putting at front of your mind what we as humans, like your basic needs of survival.
Yeah,
I remember watching in the film, there was I think this ran over the course of a day, but you'd left early with not enough water because you just assumed, well, we'll get water in 10 kilometers. And I imagine, like, you're at elevation, so I could imagine you'd not want the extra weight if you didn't need it. But then how the rest of that day transpired, it just seemed to be one thing piling onto the next of, could this get any worse? And it just seemed to they kept becoming extra problems come your way that you had to face, didn't there?
yeah. And in the film, of course, when we are actually like truly suffering, we don't like to pull out the camera so much. So it's hard to capture the reality of the day. But in the morning, we didn't think about saving weight, not having water. We just didn't have a water source. Figured, oh, just a few kilometers ahead, there's a stream, and we make it to that stream after like an hour of cycling because we're at 4,000 meters elevation, and I have diarrhea from the previous days, so very low energy. And then we make it to the stream, and it's just dark brown water. Like, oh, there's a lake ahead, let's go there. And we now are like running on drops. And then Alvari's rack breaks down. There's no shade. I have to go under my bike. I have the frame back to get some shade. I have a pulsating headache. There's no cars coming by. And we realize, like, oh, this actually isn't like too funny anymore. Yeah, in the afternoon, we make it to the lake, and then it's a saltwater lake. Yeah, that was a low moment in the journey, but all of us made sure we pushed through because I got a puncture, but I didn't have the energy to remove my tire from the rim. So he had to help me out. We fixed that puncture. And I was like, let's just boil this water and drink the drops. And he realized that's just going to take forever. And we're not going to get enough water to keep ourselves going. And we don't know if we have enough gas to even do that. And then he made sure we push to the Palmer Highway, which was another 10 kilometers ahead. And then eventually we make it there and meet this truck driver who drives past, and we treat him like God who has brought us some water, liquid bliss.
Oh, yeah. You know when some people, they get off a really badly built road and they get to the asphalt and then they get down on their knees and they kiss the road. I bet you really wanted to kiss and hug that driver so much when he's bringing you like
Yeah.
the fluid of life there, so to speak. And, when you were saying, it's only 10 kilometres further to here or 10 kilometres further to there, you have to put it into the context of you're at, 4,000 metres of elevation, the sun's beating down on you, you've got diarrhea, you have no energy, you both have no water. You're not on a cycle tour where you're riding, 15 to 20 kilometres an hour at that point by any measure. I
No,
think it was
yeah,
some of the slowest travel of the trip, probably.
yeah, and the road was kind of like you have to either decide to ride on these little bumps, that car wheels have caused over the years, like
Oh,
when they
yeah.
brake or accelerate, tiny little bumps. So you either go on those and you go maybe 5 kilometers an hour, or then you go in soft sand off the road, 5 kilometers an hour, but pedaling like with all your muscle strength just to stay like on top of the bike, or then you can push bike. And those are like your three options, and they're just bad or worse. So yeah, the pace isn't what we kind of expected. And meeting that paved road on the Palmer Highway, yeah, that was pretty special as well. We didn't kiss the road, but we felt like powder skiing after being on that gravel for probably 2 or 3 weeks by then.
It'd feel like you just all of a sudden got a tailwind instead of like a monumental headwind or something. Although you can't travel 15,000 kilometres without experience the adversity of a full-on brutal headwind as well, no doubt.
Yeah, that's crazy how much that plays with your head, that you're pedaling but you're not moving. I didn't realize ever before how intense mentally it is to pedal to headwind. I don't think everybody who doesn't cycle realizes that, but headwind is the worst enemy on the road for sure. Final boss in the mindfulness practice. If you become content with the headwind, you can be content with anything.
Have you mastered that yet? Like that mental warfare? Have you won that battle?
No way. That's why I'm in New Zealand right now and not home. Still, I think maybe in my next lifetime I'll win that battle or the next one. But yeah, no, I got a long way to go.
I do want to go down that tract of mindfulness and meditation and that sort of process as well, because it's definitely something that this journey and a lot of your physical pursuits and your time in nature has taught you. I often hear when people talk about meditation, Vallu, that it's not something that you automatically learn and then that's it. Like you are constantly on a journey of learning and stuff like that as well. Had you started this trip already open to the idea of the practice of mindfulness and seeking that type of experience? Or was it this journey and traveling through it which really puts you onto the trajectory of where you are now?
Yeah, definitely the journey more set that trajectory and realizing like the easiest way to change the world is by changing myself and my perceptions of it. I can't affect the world around me a lot, but I can affect myself and what chemicals are being released in my brain in which situation. Two people have the same experience. One might, find it the most wonderful experience, and the one might find it, really horrendous, even though it's the exact same experience. And yeah, I think that just sitting on a saddle for so many hours a day and having space to think and become more self-aware maybe of your emotions, feelings, thoughts, your consciousness, and realizing that seldom you place the order for the thoughts that come to your head. Like you have no agency over what comes in your head, but then kind of how you react to those. And you seldom place the order for experiences around you, but you get certain experiences and you can never know what happens, but you can affect, how you react to them. So I think that definitely was a big theme on the cycling journey for both of us. And then fueling that with podcasts and books around maybe not spirituality, but psychology and philosophy, and realizing how little we know about ourselves and the processes that our mind likes to do on its own.
I felt also, and this was through watching the film, that the route that your cycling tour took put you into countries which embrace this side a lot more as well. Like, when you were in India, and I'm not to say this didn't happen before, but I could really tell that both yourself and Alvis, you were in a place where you were embracing the spirituality, where you were embracing that sort of meditative state, where you were embracing the mindfulness of the area, because you were invariably finding yourself in places where that is something that is celebrated and that is something that is practiced. Was that how it was sort of playing
Yeah.
out as well?
I think we'd lose our mind if we didn't have that aspect in New Delhi, because the environment is so crazy. There's constant noise, constant car horns, constant people wanting your attention. And if you kind of would, let yourself be thrown around with that and react to everything, then yeah, it would be really intense. But pretty soon we kind of realize like, oh, this is why mindfulness is so huge here, because you'd go crazy without it. And you need that counterbalance to the chaos of the city. And then we could make it actually quite fun cycling in, for example, Delhi, by being like, hey, it's like Mario Kart. And just, navigating through traffic and realizing you can't really fall because there's so much traffic that there's a car on or like a rickshaw on each side of you. So it's not that dangerous. And you become like, you get into a wonderful flow state where you are part of the traffic instead of navigating through it. And then you see kind of the beauty of this crazy city, which kind of operates like a natural ecosystem itself, where things just flow smoothly, even though on the outside it can seem like just total chaos. But then within the chaos, there's this immense harmony.
My preconception about India is it's full on and there's people everywhere. You don't have your own personal space. And I believe that's probably true. But what people tell me overwhelmingly that really is an assault to their senses is the noise. It's just so noisy everywhere. And you were sort of saying that straight up as well. I could imagine just the need to sort of be mindful, to try and process, to allow that to be the case without it getting to you, and the hecticness of it as well. I just can't imagine that. Because New Delhi and being in India wasn't the plan. You were planning, like we mentioned earlier, to go over to China, and that just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Had either of you experienced India before this journey?
No. So that was a culture shock for both of us. We didn't know a lot about India except what we had heard from people. Then obviously coming to Delhi, we're like, oh no, we're going to be doing 40K a day again every day because there's just such crazy traffic. But once we got out of the city towards Uttarakhand, like the province near the Himalayas, on the east side of Nepal, it just on the west side of Nepal got much more peaceful, and we didn't see a lot of cars, no traffic, monkeys and trees and tigers and forests and white peaks in the background. And we're like, wow, this is not the India we presumed it would be. So that was a cool balance that just one day after being in Delhi, we were like in pristine jungle. I'm like, wow, this is quite the contrast to where we were 24 hours ago.
Was it on that section where you were on these roads where the roads were just landslides all around you? It was sort of like,
Yeah, it was raining quite hard. And yeah, only traffic was caused by huge landslides, just a whole like face of a cliff falling off and pulling the road down with it. And then, yeah, a few hours go by and there's a new road built and maybe even paved. They were really efficient in fixing them, but it definitely kept things interesting and making sure our battles are not between ourselves or each other, but between us and the environment when we were navigating these steep mountain roads that occasionally fall off.
I'm going to ask you, it's such a superficial question when we've been talking about sort of deeper topics, but what is your ultimate scene in nature? I'm a mountain lover. I moved from Australia to be in the mountains. That's where I get my energy from. What about yourself? Because you have done things which, have taken you to all different sort of landscapes, and you've lived in cities. You're now in Wanaka there in New Zealand, and, experiencing pure oxygen of nature now as well. Is there sort of like a natural scene where you really love to be in, like that you embrace more than others?
That's a great question. Maybe fjords. It kind of combines the mountains and the ocean in a way. I like the combination of like just crazy cliff face standing out of water and the combination of those because I do like the ocean, but I also like mountains. So I guess the fjords kind of combine those. And like northern Norway, Senja, Lofoten, I find those landscapes incredibly beautiful, and those we've explored with Alvis quite a bit. Yeah, those are some places of where the mind is at rest and the eyes are at rest, I guess, as well.
We were talking about the different experiences you had on this journey. I know, you're in New Zealand now. I know that you've cycled the North Island and you hiked your way through the South Island. Did you get opportunities to do some hiking while you were doing your longer trip from Helsinki to Singapore as well?
Actually, yeah, we did a few hikes. We hiked in Georgia in the Caucasus Mountains when we realized we can't cross into Azerbaijan over land borders because they're closed. We had to buy flights to Tajikistan because we couldn't also go through Russia. They're not too keen on giving visas for Finnish citizens to Chechnya. And I don't think our parents would have been too stoked if we did that. And then, like you said earlier, Turkmenistan was closed. So we bought flights and then we had like a week just to kill time. And if we just stay in a city after cycling every day and having like a purpose, you're going forward, you have to find shelter, food, water. Once you come to a city and stop, it's like, okay, so now what? And your mind might start playing tricks on you, and you have all this blood that normally went into your body now is going to your brain, or I like to think that, and that's why I get so much turmoil stopping in these cities where, people are in a rush, they're doing their thing, and you're on this journey, and it can get quite overwhelming. So we figured, let's go do some hikes in the Caucasus Mountains. And that was super cool to explore Georgia mountains, and then we did the same actually in Kyrgyzstan near Karakol Lake.
That's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. One of my best friends is actually from Karakol, so I've seen images of this and Kyrgyzstan. It was actually crossing the border to go into Kyrgyzstan is a massive story in itself, isn't it? Holy, take me on that day. Take us to what happened there.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like a day or 2 days where we put everything we had learned so far on the road to the test, and really a test of our tenacity and spirit and maybe stubbornness as well. Yeah, for those who haven't seen the documentary, we were planning to cross from Tajikistan into Kyrgyzstan, but all the locals we met said, "Oh, the border's closed. It's been closed for 2 years. You can't cross over anymore." And that kind of killed our spirits. Like, it's a pretty sad journey to fly into Dushanbe, do a loop, and then fly out of Dushanbe, which would have been the only option. Then we met these two motorcyclists who said, "Oh, they've been talking with the Ministry of Tourism in Kyrgyzstan, and they've got a special permit to cross the border over land borders, and they'll let us know if they're able to cross it." And then we actually never hear from them because we don't have cell reception anywhere in the Wakhan Valley or after to figure out were they able to get across. We approached this border town, and we've sent to the Ministry of Tourism as well, like pictures of our passports and an email saying we want to cross, but we haven't got a response. And we come to this border town, which is 70 kilometers away from the border, also at like 3,800 meters altitude or something. And we're wondering, okay, should we go? And we have no money left. Our visa is running out in 2 days, and we have no phone connection. And we figure, well, we have to try. There's no other option. So we go to the border, but it's just military personnel, and they say, sorry, the border's closed. I'm like, what do you mean? We have everything with the Ministry of Tourism, everything's figured out. They're like, yeah, there was the motorcyclist who crossed a few days ago. You must know them. We're like, yeah, we know them. Like, yeah, sorry, but a war has started 2 hours ago, and we've been forced to close all borders. So Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have still 30%, I think, of their border under dispute, and every few years they have some small battles between each other. So they had gotten an order to close off the border so we couldn't cross, but we tell them we have no money, we got no food, we can't cycle back to Dushanbe. It took us 30 days to get here.
When you talk about unplanned, right?
Yeah.
You have a plan and then it's like no, and then you find a way and then it's like no, turn back. You must have been gutted when you were
Yeah.
told that.
Yeah, that was super sad. And we kind of then didn't know what to do. We had a week before met like two ministers, like high in the government, who invited us for like a night of vodka and dinner in one of the towns. And we figured they're pretty well connected with the military. That let's go back to that town because that's only a week away. And let's go find the minister and negotiate with him in order either to get some money from him to borrow because there's no ATMs in the country, and then figure out a way get to back to Dushanbe, or see if he's connected in the military and let us cross the border somehow, pulling some strings. But then we see a SUV drive up to the border. We're like, oh, it must be a military person. Let's stop it when it comes back. And when it comes back from the border, there's an American girl in the passenger seat. And she's like, "Hey guys, how are you doing?" We're like, "Yeah, we're stuck here." She's like, "Yeah, I got a flight out of Kyrgyzstan as well. I came to try if I can cross, but I can't. I have to go all the way back to Dushanbe. It's a 2 day drive." And she had a private driver, and she gave us a fat stack of cash, and then like $100 worth of cash that could help us buy some food and survive if we have to cycle back. And that was super kind of her. And then we kind of gave up, started cycling back. Alvari had really bad altitude sickness during this whole time because the border is 4,400 meters or something. So we're cycling back, and then we see other military car coming towards us. I'm like, oh, is it a tourist or is it military this time? And we stop it, and we notice all of them are soldiers holding weapons. And we ask for like, general, do you have someone high up in your car? And everybody points at the passenger seat, and there's an older man. And we tell him, no money, no visa, big problem. We want into Kyrgyzstan. And luckily, this was the last spot where they had cell reception from the cell tower below, so they could make a call. And the general calls someone, says our story, Finlandia tourist, yada yada, and then shows us thumbs up. We're like, hold up, what just happened? Can we cross now? And then we chase the car back up the mountain, but it takes us a good 4 or 5 hours to go back up to the border because we have crazy headwind and uphill, and Alvari has a pretty intense altitude sickness. We make it to the border, but just before we make it, the same military car comes driving back. And I'm like, oh no, I hope they remember to tell them that we're coming again. Because the guy at the border had the previous night been pretty insistent that we're not going to be able to cross for a few weeks. And he had a gun, and he was kind of like shoving us away with his gun when we were really desperate and asking for food or water. And then they did give us some bread, but forced us to go back to the town, which we didn't do. We just camped near the border at night. So now we come back, and the guy sees us, and he walks up to the gate. I'm like, please be nice, please open the gate. He opens the gate wide open. He's like, hey, welcome, like we're his old buddies. Uh,
Transformation. That
yeah,
guy in the car was pretty high up, wasn't he? He had some influence.
yeah. And then, yeah, they let us through, but they forgot to stamp our passports. So once we get to the Kyrgyzstan border, they're like, you haven't left Tajikistan yet. And we're like, oh, yeah, we did for sure. Like, we came over the border, everything. They're like, you're not stamped out. But then they believed our story that it's just military personnel and not the border personnel there. And they stamped us into Kyrgyzstan, and everything was fine. And we celebrated, and we're pretty happy.
What a wild story. Again, all unplanned. And I just sort of think like things had to slot in place for all of that to even take place, right? To even be in a spot where there was cell reception, to be able to phone ahead and all those sort of things as well. I was also thinking there, Valu, you know how people sometimes look through a passport and look at the stamps and remembers a moment? That stamp in your passport, you'd nearly, when your passport gets renewed, you'd nearly keep that page and put it in a little frame somewhere, wouldn't you? Like, what you had to do to get that stamp.
Yeah, that was a yeah special day, and obviously nobody speaks English, and just trying to communicate with a huge language barrier to everybody, and no Google Translate with no cell reception, and but yeah, and once we got through that, we realized like, oh, we can get through anything. Like, don't take the word of people like, oh, you can't cross the border, or even the soldiers are like, you will for sure not cross the border for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like, there's a war going on. It's not safe to be here. And then 24 hours later, we happily cycle across. So it kind of, in maybe a good or bad way, made us more stubborn as well.
What's it actually like where you were there? Like, was it tense actually being there? Like, was there an element where you were just a bit, you needed to go that direction to keep pushing forward, but was there some tension in the air of, is this actually safe?
Yeah, they were building like barricades and like, those sand sacks, stacking them up. So it kind of felt real. And they were, yeah, obviously it was just military personnel instead of border personnel there. So there was that aspect to it, but we didn't hear any shooting or fighting or anything. And we kind of knew the history of like the borders, and they have lots of little colonies in each country that are like the other countries and been disputed since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And they often play like this 4D chess that they put, some rocket somewhere, and they say, if you shoot there, we're going to shoot here. And yeah, but unfortunately, conflicts like this happen. But also, unfortunately, Finnish newspapers wrote about this conflict, and our parents knew that we're near the border and nobody could reach us. So once we did get cell reception and Wi Fi in Kyrgyzstan, our phones were filled with missed calls and worried messages from our parents and friends and followers even who knew that we're near the border because of this news article that made it to the main newspaper in Finland.
That sort of takes a different toll, doesn't it, mentally? Because it's one thing to be in a situation, know what's going on, but it's another to place yourself in the shoes of loved ones and their minds and what
Yeah,
they're worrying about as well, because they're helpless and they have no way of contacting you. You know, when you said you cannot order the thoughts that come to your mind, that would be quite an order that you didn't want to know, right?
yeah, and it was like we don't want to cause anybody else suffering because of our trip, because of our journey. Obviously, both of our mothers are very loving and caring, and they naturally, as mothers, get worried. And I can imagine they got quite worried about this, and they had actually like met up and everything and made like a plan. And we're like the first time we called them, they were actually together. They became kind of friends during our trip, which was lovely because they had this thing that connected them that their sons are traveling across the world. But yeah, it was a bit uncomfortable, but that's, I guess, one of the costs of the journey is.
Mm. I guess on the theme of communication there, and not so much communicating with your family, and you hinted and mentioned this just before. Language barriers is definitely a thing that you face when you're traveling through countries where you don't read Cyrillic, you don't speak the language, or especially then when you're moving into China, or not China, but into Southeast Asia where the language is very different. I've had previous guests of the show, Roxy and Tommy. I remember I caught up with them when they were in
Oh,
Laos.
I know them, yeah.
They're actually in Australia at the moment. They're in Perth. Hello. But I remember they were telling me, I think when they were in Laos at that stage, even sign language seemed to be different. So even the normal signs you would make would be different. So much of a journey like this, Valu, from what people tell me, is the experiences that you have with those people that you can't communicate fully with, but somehow you seem to have conversations with them in a manner which really connect your souls in a way. Does that resonate as well?
Yeah, 100%. And this is kind of like a cliche, but like a smile is a universal language. It's the easiest way of communicating with anybody is just smiling and showing like I'm not dangerous and they smile back like I'm not either. Like awesome. Now we can have a laugh together. Yeah, I think things that are funny are kind of also universal in a way. Like this is pretty childish, but farts, like there's nothing as fun as like farting with a Tajik guy on the side of the road or something and just getting a laugh of like the most simple human things. Yeah, you definitely do. We
I'm
can cut
so
that
gonna
out,
put
but
that quote up. No way, man. I'm gonna so put that quote up with a picture on the gram. Nothing quite connects you with a Tajikistan man like swapping farts.
exactly. I think that's the really cool thing you get to experience. Obviously, neither of us have a lot of language skills, so we have to cope with just like sign language, smiles, and in the end, our needs are usually very basic. Can we sleep here? You can show that pretty easily. Do you have food for us? Do you have water? Yeah, it's pretty cool to see how much you can connect with people without having a shared language other than your body gestures and body language.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say a big heartfelt thank you to all of you listeners who have given me a small financial donation and supported me on Buy Me a Coffee. All of those donations do make a difference. They help to support the running costs of this podcast so that I can keep producing episodes for you each week. And I really appreciate all of you who've clicked on the Buy Me a Coffee link and sent me through a small donation. If you are listening and would like to support the show, you can do so quite easily. I've provided a link to Buy Me a Coffee. You will find it in the show notes. If you click on that link, and you can choose to buy me a coffee, which again is just a small donation which helps towards the running costs of the show. Thank you all so much. Okay, now let's go back to the show. Did you see then also, like there are, there's so many things that make us different, but there's so much more that shows us that we are the same. Did you feel more connected having experienced that so starkly?
Yeah, 100%. Maybe in the beginning when we left, I could have said we're going to explore new cultures. But as the journey went on, I've maybe become a bit more resistant towards cultures and kind of more excited of exploring the humanness beneath those cultures. Cultures are kind of like the ultimate cults. They tell you how to behave and how to be because you're part of some culture, you're born somewhere, and this is like how you out to be. But beneath that, there's the humanness, the one who wants to laugh about the farts, regardless where you're from. And that was really cool to see, like how we are all the same, regardless what background we have, regardless where we're from, what kind of lives we're living. We have the same basic needs. We want to be held and heard and loved, and it's, universal being human. And then on top of that, we have all this like, oh, you live in a nicer house and you have opportunities to travel further or do that or that. But in the end, there's this very rooted human aspect down beneath that you can kind of maybe get in touch with more when you don't have that shared language or that shared shallow culture.
It's very early on in your film, like very, very early on, when you're explaining the concept of why you're even doing the trip. And people are saying, oh, what are you going to do in Singapore? Or what will you do there? And you say, the journey is the destination. It's not about Singapore. It's about everything that happens all along the way. And these sort of things that we're talking about now, Vallu, when I said at the start and you said these trips change you, these journeys and experiences change you, they're sort of the learnings that you can only benefit from having undertaken this. It was unknown. That's a real case in point of the journey is the destination.
Exactly. Yeah. You only realize that on the journey itself. Like, oh, we're not trying to get anywhere. We're not trying to be anything. We're not seeking anything. Because if you start seeking something, like if we had a plan how we want to grow or what we want to see or what we want to do already in Finland, then you make the expectation that you know enough of the future to know what to look for. You go looking for, silver on a beach with a silver detector, not knowing there's actually gold there. And you'll never find the gold because you're looking for something else. Yeah, kind of getting that open mindset as early on as possible and not looking for a certain experience or to get, like, we didn't really, in the end, mind so much do we get to Singapore or not, because it's just started being like a sandbox for learning the whole journey. Like we can try out new things, do our thing, and we're on this journey that's between Finland and Singapore. The world is kind of like Disney World where we can play and be nice and kind and share fun experiences with people we would normally never meet or have experiences with. It became like a, I don't know, like a general house cleansing of the mind, the journey itself.
It reminds me, there's a quote I came across from you, actually, Vallu, and it was, if everything meets your expectations, life is pretty boring. That's that case right there in point, is it? I wonder, are you the sort of person that revisits a place, that goes back to something that you have experienced before? Were there places that you went through on this journey that you'd like to return to? Or is it a case that you always seek new experiences because, again, you already know what's there and you want to learn, you want to keep things fresh?
Yeah, well, the Buddhist saying goes, you can't step in the same river twice. Or I'm not sure if it's Buddhist or somebody says that. But I can never again go to the same place, for example, because I won't be the same person who was there before. But definitely, yeah, Tajikistan, I want to go back there as a place. There's lots of experiences to be had. I think it's a place where I can easily get real adventure. It's a place where I can be certain I have no clue what will happen tomorrow. Yeah, and then maybe, I don't know, Thailand or Malaysia. I could go back to those places maybe on a holiday, but there's a much more certainty, much less adventure maybe on, for example, on a biking tour because you have incredible beaches, super friendly people, great infrastructure, good food, and there's not a lot of room for challenge, for stuff to go wrong. And that's like when we came to Southeast Asia, we realized like, wow, this cycling is pretty easy now. Punctures, they don't make it to the diary anymore. What used to be like a challenge for us now is like pretty, every day we've got into the routine of having, some setbacks. And we're like, okay, how do we make this interesting? How do we get some challenge? How do we get something new out of this? Okay, let's see what happens if we don't eat for 48 hours. Okay, let's fast for 48 hours and continue cycling. You're like, whoa, this is challenging for sure.
Wow. It sort of goes back to what we were talking about very early in the show about seeking your physical limitations sometimes, but you're looking at putting yourself into a place of discomfort on purpose, and you're seeking personal growth from that as well, aren't you?
Yeah, and I don't know, is it a bit like masochistic or where it lies. Is it a healthy habit? It might go with the age of, being 27 and wanting to grow and have new experiences. And at some point, maybe in my life, I want to settle down and be more in comfort and have a bit more certainty over the future, which will obviously never happen. But yeah, I think once we got this ultimate freedom on the road, it can really easily become like a endless buffet of just shallow experiences. And to get that depth, you need kind of challenge and something new going on. And I think the world is enough places where you can challenge yourself for a lifetime here.
Can I just say, I'm such a food lover. I often think there's two types of people in this world, Valu. There's people who food is what you need to put into your body to fuel you to survive. And then there's people like Bella, me, where it's like food is life. Like,
Yeah,
it's what we
it's
celebrate with, it's what we do.
yeah, and it's like an art form.
Yeah, so I don't think like, oh look, of course I could survive 48 hours without it, but I wouldn't want to. And I don't know that I can take that type of challenge on. I'm so going superficial here then. I've done this a couple of times already. But what was that first meal that you had after 48 hours like? Do you remember what you had?
Well, the rule of thumb is like don't stuff yourself because your stomach has shrinked a bit and you can, get pretty uncomfortable if you take in a huge meal. So I did exactly that. I had like a big fish burger or something and felt pretty bad after it. Your sense of hunger goes away around after you hit into this ketosis. So like after 12, 24 hours, you lose the sense of hunger and then you're not even like so stoked about the first meal, but more maybe you're yeah, quite stoked about like the first flavors hitting your tongue. So Gregory, the French guy, he had a piece of mandarin and he really like devoured that mandarin. He loved just the experience, like having it. Yeah. So I should have maybe followed his footsteps instead of being like, I'm gonna get the biggest, baddest, meanest burger, and then be like, oh, that was horrible.
Oh, that'd be so me. I'd so be like you, Valu. Mind you, you talk about a mandarin, and if I was to describe the flavor, freshness, that beautiful burst of citrus, you sort of feel like it's nutrient for your soul.
Exactly. Yeah.
We mentioned Gregory there, the Frenchman, and this again goes with the idea that nothing is planned with your trip and set in stone. Like you finished your trip as a team of 3, didn't you? How did that come to be?
Well, it started as a joke in a bar in Pokhara in Nepal, which is like the base camp for a lot of different hikes and mountains in Nepal. And I was with Gregory, a guy I met on the Annapurna circuit, and we were in a bar. And he was like, "Oh, what you guys are doing is super cool." And I told him, "You should join us." And he's like, "Yeah, for sure. What leg should I do?" I'm like, "Just Bangkok to Singapore. That's a nice leg," because he was going to Thailand anyways. He's like, "Perfect. When are you going to be there?" I was like, I don't know, maybe December, January. And then December comes along, and the dude messages me on Instagram after like 2 months of radio silence, like, "Yo, I just arrived in Bangkok. I'm buying my bike. When are you guys arriving?" I'm like, "Wow, we're gonna be there in 2 weeks." So 2 weeks he went cycling around the city, prepared himself, got himself a helmet, and yeah, hit the road with us. And that was a super blessing in disguise, and really, yeah, gave the trip a whole new vibe and kind of initiated the honeymoon mode again because you have somebody who's never done cycle touring in their life and they're super stoked about everything. And the first puncture is like, really exciting and that just overflows to us. And then as a person, he's a really humorous guy. He doesn't dive into the deep mindfulness stuff. He keeps it like fun and it gave a really good fun vibe to the last month of cycling, and we got to learn through him and with him, and yeah, his just joy of life overflowed to us quiet Finns pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smiling just hearing you say that because that's what I got from him on the film. Like you can just see
Yeah,
he brought humor and a different type of energy to the team of 2. I'm not saying that you and Alvis didn't have humorous moments by any measure, but yeah, it just seemed to be like that extra bit, the third
yeah,
musketeer, as he called himself too.
exactly. And after 7 months of being just me and Alvis, we've kind of explored a lot of the themes and conversations that can be had. So the dynamic wasn't so energetic between us anymore. But then this French guy pops in, full of energy. We switch our language from Finnish to English, and just a whole new dynamic in the trio emerges. And yeah, he has a hammock because as a joke, we told him to get a hammock instead of a tent. So now every evening we have to find a spot with 2 trees or 2 lampposts for him to put his hammock in, with no rain tarp. So if it's raining, we have to find like a cave or a bus stop where he can sleep under the shed. So that also added fun new spicing to every evening.
But yeah, what a serendipitous moment to just have even met him in a bar on the Annapurna circuit.
Yeah.
What was it like then to just reach that final destination point of Singapore? Did it feel surreal? Did it feel anticlimactic? Were you wishing that it would never come? You wanted the trip to just stay on forever? Or were you ready to bring things to a close with this journey?
Yeah, that's like a wonderful question, but always super hard to vocalize because it's such a rush of new emotions, new chemicals, so much conflict in your brain, not wanting to, cross the border into Singapore because the most incredible journey of your life is coming to an end. And in a way, it's the gravestone of the adventure. While again, it's, you can be incredibly proud of yourself. You can celebrate, appreciate what you've done, reflect. When we were crossing from Malaysia to Singapore, we were on the highway, and there's a shot actually on the documentary where everybody's giving their horn because we were going so slow and there were scooters behind us. And we made it seem like, oh, everybody's celebrating us. Let's go. And the day panned out that we went first to the Finnish embassy where we had a nice gathering and got some Finnish beers and had like people who had followed our journey, but not really anybody we truly knew. And then a journalist followed us through the day as we cycled like to Marina Bay Sands, like the center of the city. And we shared with her learnings from the journey, and we had our cameras rolling, and we were like, oh, this is the last piece of footage. We need to film everything, and we take cool photos, and everything's like nice, but it's kind of like no emotions are really rolling in. You haven't really understood what's going on because you're kind of still living through the camera. You're sharing, you're verbalizing the experience. You're telling, yeah, this was our favorite country and we did this and this. And then Gregory, he was staying in a different place than us. So he leaves off to his warm showers. And me and Alvis are then at the bayfront. We had stolen some beers from the Finnish embassy, and the journalist leaves and all the cameras are now away, and then we just break out into emotion and tears and just take in what's just gone through. And only then, once we were like alone and without the cameras rolling, we could fully kind of comprehend where we are, what we've just done, what kind of journey lies behind us. But it required kind of that space to just like remember that the experience is always primary, and then friendship secondary, and documentary the third thing on the list. Yeah, just settling down and kind of letting go fully of trying to be like, oh, we're in Singapore, I'm supposed to feel this way, let's celebrate, I'm so proud of myself, or trying to analyze how you're feeling instead of just being the experience itself and letting those chemicals be released in your brain.
It would almost feel superficial when you were there with the journalist, but it was those raw moments that you had alone with each other where the emotions come out, where you're really feeling the impact of what you both have gone through. I guess this is the beauty of traveling together in this way. While your experiences and your perceptions of what's happened is your own individual thoughts, you have shared memories and experiences, so you forever will be able to connect. And there'll be something weird. You'll smell something, or the light will shine on a tree in a weird way, and you go, "Oh my gosh!" And Alvis, do you remember when we were here? Or you'll get the second puncture in a row on a day and go, "Wow, this takes me back to the Wakan Valley," or whatever. And you've got someone who you can connect with so deeply there, more than, an image on a camera lens or something like that too. And they're gifts that you've given yourself from taking on such a journey, which you can't plan for. It's such a beautiful thing. I do want to ask you, it's a question I do ask people because it is such a massive trip. When someone says, oh, tell me about your trip, it's like, well, where do you even start? And I got this idea from an awesome guest, Jack Greenwood, who went right through South America. And he, again, traveled a lot of this journey with one of his friends. And he said, I think the best question to ask someone isn't about tell me about the whole of your trip. It's tell me about one day of your trip. And I want to ask you this question here, Vallu. Tell me about one day of your trip. Take me and the listeners there, put us in your shoes. What happened on this day? It can be in any country, any moment you want, but take us there.
Oh wow, that's a tough one. There's so many different kinds of days to choose from. from like sickness to funny moments to uh yeah, maybe yeah, I'll take us back to Tajikistan just because I love the country so much. Such a gem of a place. And Wak Valley actually, another day there. The day before we ran out of water, or yeah, a few days before the day of extreme dehydration, but we were cycling in Wakam Valley where we thought we would meet no other people because there shouldn't be any housing there or much going on. And as we're cycling through, we see this little cottage hidden behind a mountain off the main road. And we're like, what's going on here? Maybe we should check it out because we definitely don't have enough food to last us for the whole valley. Maybe we can buy some. And we go there and we knock on the door and we suspect it's abandoned. But then an old woman and man let us in and have us take a seat on their couch. And they ask where are we from. We say Finlandia. Like, sauna. They have a sauna in their home. And right away, the old woman goes and starts heating it up. And we're like, wow, this is wild. We're in the middle of Wak Valley and there's a Finnish sauna. Then the man brings us some soup and we have a little bit of soup. And then we're able to wash ourselves in their sauna. And then they start telling about Marco Polo. And obviously it's like, oh yeah, we're on the Silk Road. Like Marco Polo traveled here. They're like, yeah, Marco Polo this and Marco Polo that in Russian. And we're just nodding, kind of like acting like we're making sense what they're saying. And we're creating this narrative in our mind. Oh, Marco Polo must have traveled through here. He must have been in the Wakhan Valley. And then they make a gesture of, oh, we shot Marco Polo. I'm like, what? Marco Polo died here? Somebody shot him here? And we're bamboozled. And they're wondering why we're so bamboozled. And then they point to the wall, and there's a huge painting of this mountain goat. And they say Marco Polo. And we realize, oh, Marco Polos are mountain goats. Uh, and have a good laugh. And they realized that we thought that they were talking about Marco Polo, the explorer. And then as we're about to leave, their son arrives, and it's September 1st, and the hunting season runs from, I think, September to January. And he had just made the first kill of a Marco Polo this season and had it, or the pieces of meat, on the back of his truck. And before we leave, he goes into the garage, takes an axe, and comes out with a huge bag of 3 kilos of meat for us, like Marco Polo filet. I'm like, oh no, we don't know what to do with this. Like, where do we put it? We don't have a fridge or anything. So we take this filet, put it on the back of our bikes, and continue cycling and realize we have to eat this today because it's so warm that it's going to get, the meat's going to go bad. And we realize there's zero trees, there's nothing that we can burn. We're definitely not going to like cook it on cow poop, what is pretty much the only thing available. And then we find an old shed where the door has fully broken down. There's nothing there, and realize we can burn parts of the door that's like in pieces on the ground. And we figure, okay, we make a little fire. We take our extra spokes that we had as spare parts, and we make little Marco Polo pieces onto the spokes. So we make skewers. Alvis had some salt from like a saltwater lake in Turkey still in his bike as like a souvenir. We used that as the salt, and then we had some proper Marco Polo, which was, yeah, pretty nice.
What a story. Forever now, whenever you see a mountain goat, you just go, Marco Polo. Like that is
Yeah,
so...
Marco Polo.
Yeah, exactly. I have to ask, this is the day before the day on Wak Valley. Did Marco Polo make you sick?
No, this was like 2 days before the next day we cycled. There was one stream and there was cows next to the stream, and we wondered, should we hike all the way above the cows? I'm like, nah, it was more like like a gorge. It was really rushing the water. We figured out like there's so much water, it can't be contaminated, even though there was like a bunch of cows right next to it. And we drank from that, and we didn't have any water purification tablets or filters or any of that stuff that now we figure could have been a good idea. And our stomachs had been fine so long, so we had high confidence. But then, yeah, my stomach went a little bad after that water.
Bad water will do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not to say that it is a given, but I don't know that you could take a journey from Helsinki to Singapore and get away without a batch of diarrhea or food poisoning or something along the way somewhere. So
Yeah.
it all adds to the experience on that other day in Wak Valley.
Yeah.
Listeners to the show will have heard us talk about your film a few times. If people want to follow you and actually piece the bits of your conversation with the visuals, what's the best way of finding that? It's out on YouTube. What's the YouTube channel?
It's under Alvari's YouTube channel, Alvari Poikola. It's just called Curious Pedals. Pedals like cycling pedals, not like flower petals. And also, yeah, you can find it through our Instagram, Curious Pedals. Those are probably the best way to follow our future adventures as well. We'll definitely keep on coming, I think.
And actually, I mean, before I wind the show up here, Vallu, I do want to touch on something, on a little bit of a nameplate on Curious Pedals. You did take something which you called Curious Paddles on. I mentioned it in my introduction. Stand-up paddleboarding between Sweden and Finland. And actually, I know you've also done the same through the Cook Strait, the North and South Island of New Zealand. Both of those journeys are no joke. Wow. Like, is this another case of you seeking out that physical challenge?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that physical challenge as well as just getting kind of, especially on the Baltic Sea trip, the mental space to be alone, travel alone for once, do something that, puts my body to the test every day. I'm going towards something, kind of like a micro version of the Singapore trip. Because every day you have to figure out, where do I sleep? Where do I get water? How do I survive through this day? Trusting your body to move forward. And finally arriving at some destination, but the destination itself has zero value other than that's kind of where the journey ends. Yeah, it started as a joke, as when we were kayaking in Cambodia. We're like, haha, we're like curious paddles now. And I was like, huh, curious paddles. Hmm. And then I was like, I haven't been in the ocean much before. I could explore maybe that somehow this summer to have kind of something to look forward to in the angst of having our Singapore trip finished. Yeah, the idea started, and I ended up getting a paddleboard and paddling that nice little body of water.
Nice little body of water. Just downplay it a little bit. What an experience. And again, it's an insight. If it's anything I've learnt from chatting to you today, it is just, you do yearn those. It's like it's a challenge, it's a quest, but also pushing towards a goal, pushing towards an unknown. What's going to happen during this journey? How am I going to deal with it? This is really what energizes you. My gosh, I can only imagine the adventures that are ahead of you there. You have hinted that you've got some plans, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye out to see what they are. Someone like you, Vallu, I don't think you could be content sitting through each week, each day without plotting something. And I definitely know the outdoors is what energizes you for sure.
Yeah, but I do like to say, because I obviously understand everybody can't go and, hop on a bike for 8 months. People have responsibilities, families, so adventures can happen in many ways. Having a kid can be quite the adventure of a lifetime, having to raise someone into this wild world. There's many ways of doing adventures and having adventures. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever be content with like extreme comfort and just a lot of certainty in life, but not necessarily always will the adventures be like some crazy across the world biking journeys. They might be taking a job that I would have never taken on and seeing where that takes me, and a job that where I don't know what will happen tomorrow. I think that's the coolest part of the journeys is embracing the uncertainty that is there.
The wisdom that these sort of journeys have given you, that give you this outlook as well.
The devil's advocate onto myself. It's good to get enough. Like I did this 10-day Vipassana meditation, the silent meditation you mentioned. And I was like, oh, 10 days, it's such a long time. Couldn't we just, can't I learn the tools in just a few days? And then I realized 10 days is definitely the minimum time to kind of get your mind sticky enough to take in the learnings of the experience. So there's something about like getting away from distractions and the noise of society for prolonged periods of time that opens up the opportunity for immense personal growth.
Again, it's the other end of the spectrum. It's not the physical challenge of enduring something physical that's giving you this personal growth. It's the challenge of, oh, gosh, listeners to the show, you can tell I'm an extrovert, I'm a talker. Vallu, I said I don't think I could go 48 hours without food. That would be a challenge. 10 days of silence. Wow. Probably be some people happy to not hear me for 10 days. Well, Vallu, I am going to bring this to a close, and there's 3 quick questions that I ask each of my guests to wrap the show up with. The first one is music related. There is a Seek Travel Ride music playlist now, and it consists of one song chosen by each guest that has recorded an interview on the podcast. And you get to now add to that. And the question is, what song would you pick to be the soundtrack to your adventure?
Ooh, I hope it's not on there yet, but Henry Texier, he's a French bassist who we both very much enjoyed listening during the journey. And it's a French word. I'm not good with French, but Le Piroguer, like L-E and then Piroguier. And that's also in our documentary, I think in Tajikistan. It kind of has the vibe and beat, the vibe of our journey and kind of the beat and the rhythm and the flow kind of reflects on what we felt cycling to Singapore.
Awesome. Well, you are there. You are now added. And listeners, you can find the playlist there on Spotify and Apple. And I have got a link in the show notes as well. This playlist is now over 4 hours long and it's so eclectic. I love it. I hear each song and I go on my guests' journeys. So it always leaves me with wanderlust, which is awesome. You don't know what's next. You can have something that's quite somber and then something that's almost like drum and bass. It takes you through the roller coaster of emotions of a long distance tour for sure.
Do you still remember who uploaded which one?
I proudly do. And I have it as a challenge. I think this is interview number 75. Maybe once I get to, 175, that might be a bit more of a challenge. We'll see.
Wow.
Final question for you, Vallu. Or final 2 questions, but they are quick ones. The first one, I reckon I know the answer to this, but anyway, I have to ask it. You were given the choice one day, Vallu. You can ride your bike up a constant, never-ending hill climb, or instead into a constant headwind. Which one are you going to choose?
Headwind. Yeah. Your passion is where your pain is. I think that would be, I need to become content with the wind, and I can't become content with it if I don't experience it.
I had an inkling that you were going to say headwind for this reason, because when we were mentioning headwind and how they were a mental suffering and it was such a battle and something to overcome, I thought, Vallu likes overcoming stuff and learning, and I reckon he's going to choose the headwind. Welcome to Team Headwind. There's only about 5 to 10% of you, of the guests on this team. Yeah, I love your answer. That's awesome. All right, Vallu, final question. One day you're given the choice, you're only going to be cycling for 4 hours, but you can choose to cycle for 4 hours on your own or for 4 hours with other people. Are you going to be on your alone or with others?
Right now, I choose with others. Yeah, I've been alone long enough on in New Zealand on the trails, so I wouldn't mind learning from other people and tapping into their mind and asking what kind of daddy issues are they having to deal with to be cycling here with me.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I love these answers. And I love that you know yourself to know which of those you require at the time. Like, it might be 5 months down the track, you want to be on your own in your own thoughts again. The thoughts that you didn't want to be served up, you can't choose them.
Exactly.
Vallu Heinilä, it has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you and to learn more about your journey. I am certainly energized hearing about the experiences that you've had, hearing how they've transformed you. And I've taken a few learnings away as well. I perhaps will always look at goats and call them Marco Polo now. And in the Pyrenees, we have a few very apt mountain goats around as well. Thank you so, so much for sharing your story and experiences here on Seek Travel Ride.
Thank you, and let me know if you're ever around in Wanaka. Let's go seek and travel and ride the nature here.
I'm super energized having just spoken with Vallu there and hearing about his experiences on this awesome trip. It really struck me just how much he has taken away from this journey, from the ability to process his own thoughts to being mindful, to even the idea that you would set yourself extra mini challenges just to push yourself to see what you can do. Sometimes I think it takes going on such a big journey to get the self assuredness and that belief in yourself as well. I was just captivated hearing him discuss this. And also to be able to sort of drill into what's it like to take a journey with a really good friend and how that friendship evolved over time. The balance of having Gregory, the Frenchman, join, and just having that extra dynamic come in at the 7-month mark, and how that lifted and changed the sort of vibe between the group as well. It was really, really awesome. I encourage you fully to check out the Curious Pedals documentary film on this. It's out there on YouTube, and I have provided a link in the show notes as well. Thank you, Vallu. I'm looking forward to seeing what's ahead of you around the corner. If you're enjoying Seek Travel Ride, make sure to sign up to the Seek Travel Ride monthly newsletter. In it, I share who our future guests are going to be, a little bit about our past guests, and also news from within our community, letting you know how you can get involved in the podcast. To sign up, just click on the newsletter sign up link in the show notes, and you will have fresh Seek Travel Ride news delivered straight to your inbox each month. Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.